They never saw it coming, but we definitely did. Disney Plus has done the deed we predicted it would, and that is, it's disappeared from the streaming charts. Nielsen not having a single thing from Disney, only Bluey having the Disney Plus name attached, and Bluey is not made from Disney. It's a catastrophic collapse from the House of Mouse, and Bob Iger might have some splaining to do. We'll tell you what's really going on and why it's changing the song of Disney real fast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel that continues to explain entertainment. Keeping you ahead of the culture curve is what we do, and yes, we understand the Holly weirds in a way that not even they can explain. Today, we're going to tell you what's happening as Disney Plus has disappeared from the streaming charts. It is a monumental moment in the history of entertainment and the burgeoning industry of streaming. As we get started, click the like button, and here we go. Right here out of Nielsen, it is the current list for February 24th through March 2nd, 2025. That's the most recent that they have, and it's really, really fascinating for one particular reason. Let's examine, please. Here's the top 10 for the last week of February. Reacher, Zero Day, Love is Blind, Running Point, Family Guy, Bluey, Despicable Me 4, Venom, The Last Dance, The White Lotus, and Grey's Anatomy. But here's what's more important. Let me call them out again, and this time by streaming platform. Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, Peacock, Netflix, Max, Hulu, Netflix. Well, what if we go to the originals? On the originals, we've got Reacher, Zero Day, Love is Blind, Running Point, 1923, Severance, Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frank, Paradise, American Murder, and then Cobra Kai. Let me read those streaming services again. Prime Video, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Apple TV Plus, Hulu, Netflix. Yeah, I'm going to become a auctioneer one day. Let's go to movies, and I'm going to skip acquired for a particular reason. Going to movies, this really matters. Here are the top 10 movies on streaming for the final week of February, which is the most recent week we have. Despicable Me 4, Venom, The Last Dance, Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, To Catch a Killer, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Counterattack, Watcher, The Gorge, Trial by Fire, Squad 36. And again, just to keep the pattern going, here are the streaming services in which they appear. Netflix, Peacock, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Netflix, Hulu, Netflix, Apple TV Plus, Netflix. Folks, do you notice what I'm not calling out?
Yep.
There's no Disney Plus. In fact, the only place in which Disney Plus appears is on Acquired. Bluey. It's a show Disney doesn't make. It's a show that Disney has often been at odds with, censoring their episodes, and trust me, they shouldn't censor them. Meanwhile, they have stuff like Louder and Prouder that's on Disney Plus that has stuff that's just inflammatory. They don't censor that, but they censor episodes of Bluey. Come on. They don't make it, and yet it's the only thing that has the Disney name attached to it, even though Disney doesn't make it, own it, can't license it, etc. Bluey is it. For all intents and purposes, Disney Plus is gone from Nielsen. And the most important thing to look at is the fact that there are no Disney movies in the top 10. There's no Moana. There's no Frozen. There's no Encanto. There's no nothing. There's no Marvel. There's no Star Wars. There is no Pixar. There's no Disney animation. Disney is out of the top 10 movie list. This is, I think, catastrophic for the House of Mouse. Yes, you can find Hulu there. But Disney Plus, the flagship streaming service, I don't think they can hide it anymore. It is in absolute red flag, red alert mode. And I'll go to Kevin first on this. Kevin, where's Disney and why is it not there?
Disney is, Disney's where it's supposed to be. Nowhere. Because they've done this to themselves. Not only have they stopped producing content, they stopped producing content that anybody cares about, anybody wants to see, and anybody trusts. This has been a long time in the making, and we're finally in the comeuppance phase. I wish I had a little bit more to say, but that's just kind of the meat and potatoes of it, right? Like, Disney does not provide a family experience. It has no desire to. It's invested a lot of money in preaching and giving you magic lesbians who can make babies with the power of their minds, and it's just no one's interested in it. No one cares. So everybody else has moved on. You're in trouble when Paramount Plus is doing better than you.
I was going to say the power of many, Kevin, but it's fine.
These numbers really upset me. They really do, because think about it. The company has attempted the Walt Disney Company, that is, has attempted to compete with the biggest players in the streaming game, that being Netflix and a couple of others, to the degree that they spent in 2021 $30 billion on content. And again, in 2022, they spent $33 billion on content. That's almost twice as much as Netflix is spending on content this year, at about $18 billion. And with all that money spent and taking it out of the parks in order to do that, they're nowhere even on these charts. Not even on movies, which is something that they dominated for years. But they haven't been able to produce a movie in like a decade that's really been a cultural phenomenon that people can pick up and watch over and over and over and over again, unless it's like Moana and a couple of others. It's so frustrating as a parks fan to see the amount of money wasted on the entertainment division on creatives who have no idea what they're doing, who are not in tune with the audience, and just urinating that money down the drain. While the parks, I mean, they have been suffering from a lack of investment for years now, and that's the thing that's actually making the money, not this entertainment content. Frustrating.
The idea was that from Disney, the idea was that although they were a theme park company, they were going to be primarily a streaming company, and the theme parks were secondary. So they treated the theme parks as if they were secondary. And the problem is that they're not a streaming company. Now, they've acquired at great expense things like Hulu, which the entire Fox purchase plus Hulu is, in excess of $70 billion. So the idea that they're ever going to profit off this is crazy. The news will say, and Disney will say, well, we achieved profitability in the last quarter. And it's like, yeah, you made $1 million more than you spent in that quarter, but you're in the hole something like $100 billion. And that's no lie. Listen, folks, that's what we have analyzed this to be, is approximately, according to our best estimates, approximately $100 billion spent on streaming. And they brag about making $1.25 million. Listen, this is not going well for Disney. And it's not just that it's not going well. It's also that the efforts to do this Reimagine Tomorrow, and all of this cultural battle kind of thing, it decimated them. Disney should dominate the top 10 movies. And you know why Disney should dominate the top 10 movies? Because Disney should be a babysitting service when it comes to movies, right? Let's go to the movies again.
Yep.
Disney, and 2 years ago when Disney Plus had almost no subscribers in comparison to today, they dominated this list. Yes. They're nowhere to be seen now. They're nowhere to be seen because families don't trust their kids to sit and watch the movies. That was the whole, that was the kit and caboodle for the House of Mouse was, your kid can sit there and watch Frozen 17 times. Now parents can't do that because they're not willing to walk away. And I'm not suggesting it was ever a good idea to let your kid sit there and watch hour after hour of streaming. I think that's a bad idea, but that's what the economic reality was.
Oh, yes. And if you guys are thinking, well, you know what? They've made a lot of money at the box office, though. So, it keeps that creative engine alive and at least keeps the money train flowing. Well, from what I understand, I believe the theatrical division within Disney hasn't turned a profit since, I thought it was Q2 of 2021. I got to look at that again, but it's been a long time. So even from an economic enterprise, even if you're not just looking at these ratings here, it's just been a complete failure, a complete and utter failure from stem to stern. And it's really unfortunate because it didn't have to be this way. And my question to the panel is on all of this, why would you ever stuff Hulu into Disney Plus when Disney Plus has been associated, I think, for a long time now with inferior quality?
Yeah.
Well, Hulu should be the flagship streaming service right now. Disney is a minor afterthought. That's why on Nielsen they're chunking it all together, is because it's embarrassing to Disney to have Hulu beat Disney Plus, and that's where we're about to be. Lauren, when we look at the list, though, it's obvious that the big players from Disney are nowhere to be found. There's no Marvel, there's no Star Wars, right? And when they do appear, it's briefly and it's at the bottom of the list. So, it seems to me that what we've seen at the box office is also true in streaming, and that seems to me to be a reflection of the decline culturally in the power of these franchises. What wiped out Disney in terms of at least these boy brand franchises, Lauren?
They decided they didn't like boys.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I mean, really, that's what it is. They decided that they were going to deliberately not give the audience what they wanted and instead give them the vegetables that they didn't want. One of the things that we talked about on the latest Genre Guys movie that we reviewed, it was Disney's Robin Hood. And the question was asked by Hangry, why does this one appeal to me where the modern stuff doesn't? And the answer that I gave is that they weren't pandering to one side of the audience. They actually had something for both the boys and the girls in Robin Hood. And part of that was providing a chivalric example of how a male should act. Robin and Marian, they have a courtly romance story that appealed to boys. And nobody knows how to write that stuff anymore. So that's a lot of where they lost it. If you want to appeal to boys, you have to show them a target that they should be hitting morally and show them how to overcome adversity. That's the message that boys are looking for.
Well, see, Lauren, okay, so that would require Disney to acknowledge that males have an anatomical difference from females, and that there's a biological proclivity for males to be stronger, faster, larger, and therefore males, it is apparent that males then therefore should attempt to defend and to provide and to protect to the best of their ability, and that if they operate in the opposite way, then they're scurrilous. But that's the chivalric thing that you're discussing that's present in Robin Hood, and it's a vision for boys and what they could be if they aimed themselves in the right way. But again, that goes back to Disney acknowledging that there's a difference in the sexes, and Disney up until 5 minutes ago is not willing to do that. But and Lauren, you can tackle that if you want to on a rebuttal. But also, Lauren, they're bringing Luke Skywalker back to the parks. They're bringing the original characters back to the parks. I don't think it's because they suddenly thought, we just haven't had enough Luke lately. I think that actually they've declined to such a degree that it's the only thing they can do now. They've got to go back to these characters that inspired. I don't know that they know how to write them in an inspirational way anymore, but do you think, Lauren, that it's finally gotten through to them? Like, do you think when you see Luke in the parks now that maybe Disney has said, we're losing too much on this hill?
I think that's the right way to frame it. I think that they understand that they're in some trouble, but I don't think this is the message that they want to give. They still haven't got that message. They still think that they can sprinkle in parts of their ideology. They're still going to try and push that line wherever they possibly can. They're going to try and do it a little more stealthily, but I don't think that they have the mindset that men or boys are particularly desirable. They don't think that there is anything that is positive about masculinity. That's why they call it toxic masculinity. They would rather infuse more feminine traits onto males or lose them as the audience entirely.
What do you think about that, Kevin? The idea that they neutered masculinity inside the corporation, like top to bottom, bottom to top, all of Disney, and maybe that's why, beyond just, if we're trying to figure out, like, philosophically, what killed the company, what caused them to lose the cultural battle, and no longer do parents want to hand their kids over to Disney, is that sort of what sits nested at the bottom of all this?
Yeah, listen, it was intentional. It was intentional, and it happened over the span of, I would say, very slowly, probably over decades, and then roughly around 2012, 2013 is when they lost their collective minds and decided to allow the nonsense to pierce the veil and tell everybody what they were doing. I don't think that they've actually learned the lesson. I think that this is them being forced to acquiesce as little as they can stomach. They're going to do this as long as it's they think they have to. And here's why. So Star Wars is Well, it's pretty much dead, right? It's where we're in the middle of a death rattle. If we dragged out Luke at the parks because we kind of had to, but if they were really serious about fixing it, don't you think they would have turned around and said, "Here's a Luke Skywalker animated series voiced by Mark Hamill"?
Well, maybe Mark Hamill. The problem with him is, of course, he'll ruin you at this point. He's like Rachel Zegler. He's like Mark Ruffalo. He's like John Boyega.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely see that it would be wise to find someone who can sound like Mark, and I'm sure there are actors out there who do so. Guys, you've articulated this way. I mean, really, it's been fascinating to me to think about the idea that actually at the heart of this might be the reduction, or at least the handing off of masculinity to women instead. The girl boss idea. Vash, I see you're wanting to hop in. Get in here, please.
Yes, I heard something very, very interesting, which was it's not really left versus right. It's masculinity versus femininity. And to expand that point out even further, I think it's the perversion of both. It's a perversion of masculinity and making it toxic, and the perversion of femininity in which you attribute masculine traits to the female form there. And I think, George Lucas was so profound in the works of Joseph Campbell and following those and those teachings and so forth.
Wait a minute, Vash. That's not what John Boyega said. He didn't think that George was so smart. But go ahead. I'll
yeah.
You go against John Boyega if you want to.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go against him directly, but I will say that the George Lucas was so profound in that because he understood what resonated throughout the cultures, throughout the times, throughout the languages and language barriers and so forth. He understood that no matter where that story was actually coming from or emanating from, there were certain particular traits that kept repeating and so forth. And I think one of those things is, like Lauren was saying right there, masculinity, true masculinity and true femininity. And for the company to get away from that, because the Princess brand used to be so unbelievably popular for them. Where's that now? Where's Star Wars now? Where's Marvel now? It's so muddled and perverted and so forth that these brands don't really stand out anymore, and they've receded back in terms of the popularity and cultural appeal.
Sorry to jump in. The along with the one, you turned masculinity and femininity and you made them antagonistic of each other while chopping down masculinity to raise up toxic femininity. But the crisis really started when you remove the morality tale from storytelling. Everybody understands basic moral lessons, and I'm talking super simple stuff like forgiveness, honesty, embracing family, teamwork, cooperation, bettering yourself. These are the things that were the kings of early content. I wish Lou was here, because I would ask him about when they made the switch from to dump the hokey rule content and switch over to more gritty urban stuff, because I think that's where you really started to see the change. We left Mayberry and introduced Huggy Bear, and you started to very slowly see the erosion of clearly defined good guys versus bad guys.
Are you talking about the dropping of the Hays Code? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, very so. Yeah, so it's like you see, like as you move through the decades, good guys become less good, right? How often when was the last time you saw a police drama where all the cops were actually good guys trying to do the right thing for the right reason? When was the last time you saw a competent father on a show who didn't have some kind of deep flaw, wasn't a philanderer, but didn't abandon the family at some point in time? You're not allowed to be good for the sake of being good, and if you are, it's sometimes played for laughs, or they will go out of their way to diminish you somehow. And without that purity of storytelling, it's just innate. Human beings understand good versus evil. People want to do the right things, and you've removed that from storytelling.
It does. We've been too focused on everybody's a flawed individual, So, you're 100% right. The morality tale has been abandoned. You want your heroes to fail, but not fail because they're evil or do anything for ill intent. The failure becomes a growing opportunity, a point of growth or learning in whatever way it is. And I think that the difference is specifically with the example cited a few moments ago with Robin Hood. It's very clear, and you have a role model in Robin. The people are being treated terribly. So they rob from the rich to give to the poor. And there's a reason behind what they're doing. It could be portrayed as wrong. At the same time, morally, what they're doing would be correct. It's doing something for the right reason. It has been abandoned. And that's why now we deconstruct constantly the heroes. The heroes are deconstructed and the villains are elevated, because they're misunderstood. Well, look, I promise you, if the people are identifying with the villains, they're the villains in their own story, and they're the villains to culture, and they have been since, well before 2013. But I agree with you. We've failed to tell positive stories around one gender while trying to lift up artificially another, filling them with the attributes that they don't possess, and vice versa. I mean, I'm sorry, there's not a whole lot of soft guys out there that are not having a soy latte every day. So it's just, it's a weird position that we're in. And by the way, I hate the term toxic masculinity, not for any other reason that it's improperly used every single time it's said, because that comes straight out of prisons. It has to do with prison culture, not with anything outside of there. Yep. So the fact that it is continually restated and has now been adopted by people who are not clinicians, they're just fools.
Co-opted, I believe you mean, culture. And by the way...
Oh, did I not say co-opt? What did I say?
I think maybe you did. Maybe you did.
No. Seriously, what did I say? I don't remember. I don't recall. It's that many. I'm that old. I don't know.
Well, lest we take a trip down memory lane, and that was 5 seconds ago.
Sorry.
We have a good piece of news for Kevin Apollo, because when he asks, he receives.
Ooh. Who could that be? Let's go see, boys and girls.
Ladies and gentlemen, take a look. It is LW Ghost here.
Well, I didn't want you to be all using my name in vain, as they say, so I thought I better show up. Thank you for all the many kind allusions, attributes, and what have you. I must make a terrible confession. Never in my life have I had a soy latte.
That's not a terrible admission. That's
wanted one. But the bottom line on all of this stuff, envy. I know from speaking with many of you about some of the things I've been involved with that you guys admired and respected the great families that I was happy to be a technical part of in the course of my career. These people didn't admire and respect them. They envied them to the point where they wanted to denigrate them. They envied them to the point where they wanted to make them disappear from the lexicon. And that's what it's all about. It's a victim mentality that is encouraged by people who want to victimize and use them. So it's not really complicated. It's insidious, but it's not really complicated, in my opinion.
Well, Lou, share with us your thoughts on exactly what it means for Disney to be basically off the charts for Nielsen and to have reached a point of cultural irrelevancy where the only reason that we talk about them so much at this point in the legacy media is because they're a legacy item with vast economic power still from a century of what Walt built. But in terms of producing things today that people get really excited about, they have pockets of success, but the largesse of what they do is not successful in any way. So what do you think about that, Lou, and how did it happen? And what do you think? Where do you think we're going with Disney?
Well,
Are we at a revelatory point yet?
One of the things I always try and point out when we do genre guys is how recent all of this stuff is. how it wasn't that very long ago that we had great movies with great characters and people you gave a darn about, and suddenly it all went away. And it's not that long since that happened. And you got to date it to the whole woke DEI thing. And as I've said in many ways here and on the website and what have you, they thought they were writing the world's future history, and surprise, it was a flash in the pan. But when it takes you 5 or 6 years to do things, whether it's a theme park ride or a movie or anything else, a lot can happen in those 5 or 6 years. And they were encouraged by their success in dominating the world through the COVID scams. They were encouraged by the fact that, hey, we pulled it off and we got it and we're in charge and we're not looking back from here. And surprise, because when you say that about their economic dominance or their few successes, failures, it's about a hell of a lot more than economics. It's about their cultural place in the entire history of our arts and our families and our homes and our relationships with our kids and with our parents. That's the memories that people make at the parks. That's the memories that people make at the movies. That's the reason why you could release them every 7 years and people came back and came back and came back. It's something, I once heard Michael Eisner say that he had this weird feeling once that literally babies were born with those 3 circles, the big one and the 2 little ones somehow implanted in their brains and in their eyes because of the way they reacted to it with theoretically no precedent in their lives. Well, it's true. And they took all of that and said, nah, we don't need that. We're going to remake the world in our own image. And surprise, the world decided not to cooperate. So
that's right. The image that was crafted by Walt was utterly successful. And this new one, not so much.
And Walt did not invent it at all.
Very true. No,
Walt saw it and understood it because he'd lived it, because his family had lived it. And he just said, look, read the inscriptions around Disneyland, read the stuff at the flagpole, read the stuff over the door about, here you leave behind and the hard truths and all those other things. I don't care where you're from in the world. It's the American dream that's involved in Disney. And that's not a bad thing if you happen to be from England or Germany or China or anywhere else, because it's the most successful dream and the most realized dream in the history of mankind, period.
And to wrap this up, that's why in China, it's Mickey Avenue instead of Main Street USA. Because Main Street USA is so powerful.
Yeah.
They couldn't allow it.
Well, they tell stories about during the Watts riots, which I lived through in LA, about how the Soviet TV people who never showed anything as far as live news from America put that on live, showing the looters and the rioters in Russia to show people, see that terrible capitalist system? And you know what the people in the Russian households were thinking when they saw it? My God, those people carrying off all those washing machines and refrigerators and bicycles, God, they got a lot of those over there. How come we don't have that? So the law of unintended consequences is a pretty powerful thing.
Absolutely. Folks, it's time to bid you adieu, but we hope that you will help us anew. And that is, we're only asking you click that like button. Share, subscribe, click it, stick it to those algorithms. It is the notification bell, and drop a comment down below. And oh, by the way, have you gone the way of thatparkplace.com? www.thatparkplace.com. It's the website that if you're not yet bookmarked to, well, you should be. A bastion of truth and knowledge when it comes to entertainment and everything that's going on. Go check it out today, folks. We would love to have you over there as well. All right, we are getting ready to head out, but do not fret, for we will put out 4 more videos tomorrow, so long as the good Lord allows. And we believe that probably, just might, happen. All right, until the next time we get to share time with you, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Jump into the water. Why listen to music made by people and companies who really don't like you? Check out Vacation Radio today and prepare for all new content made by the people behind the WDW Pro Channel. It's the place you need for all the music. That should be fun.
So I give them cannonball.
Hundreds of songs, every genre you can imagine. Listen live on YouTube and enjoy a set list that's always sunny. It's Vacation Radio. What are you waiting for? Every WDW Pro video has a link to Vacation Radio in the video description. Try it out and subscribe today.
3 days of you